What would you do if you discovered your husband's secret on Christmas Day? Clarissa checked his phone. Just a glance, just one moment of doubt. And what she found shattered everything. Messages, dozens of them. Thinking about you. Wish I could see you tonight. You make everything better.
The kitchen smelled like cinnamon and promises kept. Clarissa's hands moved with practiced precision across the marble countertop, basting the 20-pound turkey one last time before it went back into the oven. 6 a.m. on Christmas morning, and the house was still wrapped in that magical pre-dawn quiet, the kind that only existed before children woke up and the chaos of the holiday took over. She stepped back, surveying her work. The ham glistened under its brown sugar glaze, studded with cloves in perfect geometric patterns. 3 types of appetizers waited on silver platters, covered in plastic wrap. The cranberry sauce had been made from scratch 2 days ago. The dinner rolls were rising under a warm towel. Everything was exactly as it should be. This is what holds us together, she thought, adjusting a sprig of rosemary on the charcuterie board. This tradition, this table, this is what keeps a family whole. Last Christmas flashed through her mind. Jeremy's arms around her waist as she'd stood in this exact spot, his chin resting on her shoulder. "You make everything perfect, Clary," he'd whispered, his breath warm against her neck. "The girls, this house, these holidays, don't ever change." She'd laughed and turned to kiss him, flower on her nose, love in her heart. Clarissa touched her wedding ring now, twisting it absently. The diamond caught the early morning light streaming through the window, throwing tiny rainbows across the counter. She pushed away the nagging feeling that had been sitting in her chest for weeks, that quiet voice that whispered, "Something's different, something's wrong." "Mom!" The spell broke as Tony burst through the kitchen door. Still in her pajamas, her dark curls wild around her face. Behind her, Sarah followed with 2 of their friends, all of them giggling about something on someone's phone. "Mom, can we have hot chocolate, please? It's Christmas." Sarah's eyes were bright with that 14-year-old enthusiasm that Clarissa wanted to bottle and keep forever. "After breakfast, baby," Clarissa said, smiling despite her exhaustion. "And keep it down, your father's still sleeping." Tony rolled her eyes in that particular teenage way that meant she knew more than she was saying. "Dad's always sleeping late these days." "He's been working hard," Clarissa replied automatically, though she wasn't sure when that explanation had become her default response to everything. The girls disappeared back upstairs in a flurry of laughter and footsteps, and Clarissa returned to her preparations. She was arranging pine cones around the centerpiece when the doorbell rang. "I've got it," she called out, wiping her hands on her apron as she hurried to the front door. Auntie Grace stood on the porch, regal in her burgundy coat and matching hat, holding a covered dish that Clarissa knew contained her famous sweet potato casserole. "Merry Christmas, baby girl," Grace said, her sharp eyes taking in everything at once, the way they always did. She kissed Clarissa's cheek, and Clarissa caught the familiar scent of Chanel No. 5 and peppermint. "Merry Christmas, Auntie! Come in, it's freezing out there." Grace stepped inside, but she didn't move toward the kitchen. Instead, she stood in the foyer, studying Clarissa's face with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "You've outdone yourself again, dear," Grace said slowly, "but you look tired." "Just excited," Clarissa said quickly, taking the casserole dish and heading toward the kitchen. "You know how I get before these dinners. Jeremy should be down any minute, and then—" She stopped, mid-sentence. Jeremy's phone was buzzing on the kitchen counter, screen up, next to the cutting board. She'd forgotten he'd left it there last night when he'd come down for water. Clarissa set down the casserole dish, her heart suddenly beating faster. She shouldn't look. She trusted her husband. They'd been married for 18 years. She shouldn't. The phone buzzed again. Grace had followed her into the kitchen and was now opening cabinets with familiar ease, looking for serving spoons. She didn't seem to notice Clarissa's hesitation. Clarissa picked up the phone. The screen lit up with a text message preview. "Can't wait to see you. It's been too long. M."
Her stomach dropped like an elevator with cut cables. She stared at the words, reading them again and again, as if repetition might change their meaning. M. Who was M?
The doorbell rang again. Uncle Marcus and his family, probably. They were always early. She heard Tony racing down the stairs to answer it. Voices rose in greeting, laughter echoing through the house. Clarissa's hand hovered over the phone. She could swipe it open, read the whole conversation, find out who M was and why they couldn't wait to see her husband. She could know right now what that nagging feeling had been trying to tell her for months. Instead, she pressed the power button and silenced the phone, placing it face down on the counter. More people were arriving. She could hear them in the entryway, her sister Monica with her loud laugh, the Patterson family from next door with their twin boys. The house was filling up with sound and movement and the kind of chaotic joy that only came once a year. Should she check? Should she trust? Clarissa tied her apron tighter and returned to her preparations. The turkey needed to be checked, the table needed to be set. 23 people, she'd counted last night, were coming to celebrate Christmas in her home. And everything had to be perfect. Everything was always perfect. Grace was watching her again from across the kitchen. "Where's Jeremy?" she asked, her tone casual but her eyes sharp. "He'll be right down," Clarissa said, and her smile felt like armor, heavy and necessary. "You know how he is on holidays, likes to sleep in a bit." The words came out smooth and practiced, even as that text message burned in her mind. "Can't wait to see you. It's been too long. M." By 9:30 a.m., the house was full. Cousins sprawled across the living room furniture, children ran up and down the stairs. Someone had turned on Christmas music, and Bing Crosby's voice filled every corner with artificial warmth. The dining room table was set with her grandmother's china, each place card written in calligraphy. And everyone kept asking the same question. "Where's Jeremy?" "He'll be down soon," Clarissa said to her brother. "He'll be right out," she told the Pattersons. "Any minute now," she promised Monica, who raised one skeptical eyebrow. Clarissa kept moving, kept smiling, kept hosting. She refilled drinks and answered questions and laughed at jokes, all while that phone sat, silent and accusatory, on the kitchen counter. The turkey came out at 9:47 a.m., golden and perfect. As she set it on the cooling rack, Jeremy's phone buzzed again.
This time, Clarissa didn't look. She couldn't afford to. Not with 23 people watching her hold everything together. Not on Christmas. Not when her daughter's friends were here and Auntie Grace was taking mental notes of every crack in the facade. So she adjusted her smile, checked her reflection in the side of the stainless steel refrigerator, and walked back into the controlled chaos of her carefully constructed Christmas. But deep down, beneath the flour and the fake cheer and the desperate need for everything to be perfect, Clarissa knew. The nagging feeling had been right all along. Something was very, very wrong. At 11:30 a.m., Jeremy finally appeared at the top of the stairs. Clarissa looked up from the gravy she was whisking and felt her breath catch. He'd showered, his hair was still damp at the edges, and he was wearing the cashmere sweater she'd bought him last month, navy blue because it brought out his eyes. He looked good. Too good for a family Christmas dinner. And his cologne. God, when had he started wearing that much cologne? "There he is," Uncle Marcus called out from the living room. "Thought you died up there, man." Jeremy laughed, but it sounded hollow. He was coming down the stairs with his phone in his hand, thumb scrolling, eyes fixed on the screen even as he navigated the steps. Clarissa's jaw tightened. She set down the whisk and wiped her hands on her apron, forcing brightness into her voice. "Perfect timing, honey. Can you carve the turkey? Everyone's about ready to sit down." Jeremy looked up, but his eyes didn't quite focus on her. "Actually, babe, I need to run out for a bit." The kitchen went quiet. Even the music from the living room seemed to dim. "What?" Clarissa heard the edge in her own voice and tried to soften it. "Jeremy, everyone's here. Dinner's in 20 minutes. I know. He was already moving toward the coat closet, still looking at his phone. I forgot something important. I'll be quick, promise." "What could you possibly have forgotten?"
She followed him into the hallway, aware of eyes watching them from the dining room. "Jeremy, we have everything. I've been planning this for weeks." He pulled on his jacket, the good one, the one he wore to client dinners, and finally looked at her. For just a moment, something flickered across his face. Guilt? Fear? She couldn't tell.
Then he leaned in and kissed her forehead, quick and dismissive. "It's important, Clary. I'll explain later. Just start without me if I'm not back in time." "Jeremy!" But he was already out the door, keys jingling, the cold December air rushing in before the door clicked shut behind him. Clarissa stood in the hallway, frozen. Through the archway, she could see her family pretending they weren't staring. Monica was studying her wine glass with intense concentration. Uncle Marcus was suddenly fascinated by his phone. The children, mercifully, were still playing upstairs. A hand touched her elbow. Auntie Grace. Kitchen. Now. Clarissa let herself be guided back through the swinging door, away from the curious eyes and uncomfortable silence. Once they were alone, Grace crossed her arms and fixed Clarissa with a look that could cut glass. "That boy is lying." "Auntie!" "I've seen that look before," Grace continued, her voice low and firm. "On your father's face. Years ago, right before I found out about his secretary." Clarissa felt something hot and sharp rise in her chest. "Auntie, please. Not today. Not Christmas." "You think infidelity takes holidays?" Grace shook her head. "Denial is a warm blanket, child, but it still smothers you."
I don't want to talk about this right now. Clarissa moved to the stove, stirring the gravy with more force than necessary. I have 23 people waiting for dinner. I can't fall apart. I'm not asking you to fall apart. I'm asking you to open your eyes. My eyes are open. Clarissa slammed the spoon down, gravy splattering across the stovetop. I saw the text this morning, okay? I saw it. I can't deal with this right now. Grace's expression softened slightly. "Oh, baby girl." "I'm fine." Clarissa grabbed a towel, wiping up the mess with shaking hands. "I'm fine. We're going to have dinner, and we're going to smile, and we're going to pretend everything is perfect, because that's what we do. That's what I do." She turned back to face her family through the kitchen door. Everyone was watching her, waiting. Clarissa took a deep breath, smoothed her apron, and walked back into the dining room with her hostess smile firmly in place. "Sorry about that, everyone." Her voice was bright, cheerful, completely fake. "Jeremy got called away for a work emergency. You know how it is. Clients don't care if it's Christmas." She laughed, and it sounded almost real. "Let's go ahead and start. Everything's ready." Most people nodded, accepting the lie because it was easier than confronting the truth. They began moving toward the table, complimenting the decorations, admiring the food. But Tony, standing in the doorway with her friends, rolled her eyes so hard Clarissa was surprised they didn't fall out of her head. And Sarah, sweet 14-year-old Sarah, who still believed in magic and happy endings, looked at her mother with confused eyes. "On Christmas, Mommy? Someone has to work on Christmas?" "Sometimes, baby," Clarissa said, pulling out Sarah's chair. "Sometimes work can't wait." The lie tasted like ash in her mouth. Dinner passed in a blur of forced conversation and mechanical motions. 12:30 p.m. No Jeremy. Clarissa's phone sat next to her plate. Silent. She tried calling once while she was in the kitchen getting more rolls. It went straight to voicemail. She didn't leave a message. 1:45 p.m. Still no Jeremy. She tried again. Voicemail again. The anger was starting to build now, replacing the anxiety. Hot and solid in her stomach, making it impossible to eat the meal she'd spent 2 days preparing. 2:30 p.m. Guests were starting to ask questions again. "Is Jeremy okay?" Monica whispered when Clarissa passed her chair. "Should we be worried?" Uncle Marcus asked, concern creasing his forehead. "He's fine," Clarissa said through gritted teeth. "Just busy. You know Jeremy." But she was starting to wonder if she knew Jeremy at all. "I need to grab something from upstairs," she announced to no one in particular, setting down her napkin and escaping before anyone could ask more questions. She climbed the stairs slowly, each step feeling heavier than the last. The sounds of dinner faded behind her. Laughter, conversation, the clink of silverware on china. All of it felt very far away. Their bedroom door was closed. She pushed it open. And there, on the bed, screen glowing in the afternoon light filtering through the curtains, was Jeremy's iPad. He'd forgotten it. Or maybe he'd left it on purpose, thinking she'd never look. Clarissa stood in the doorway for a long moment, listening to her own heartbeat. She could walk away. She could go back downstairs and finish hosting and pretend everything was fine. Or she could know. Her hands were shaking as she picked up the iPad. It was unlocked. He never remembered to lock it. The screen showed an email thread. Subject: Jeremy and Miranda, Christmas plans. Her vision blurred for a second. She sat down hard on the edge of the bed and started reading.
From Miranda Thornton to Jeremy Hartwell. Date December 23. I know this is difficult, but it's time. You can't keep living this double life, Jeremy. It's not fair to either of us. Tell her on Christmas. It'll be kinder than you think. Families are together. There's support around. I'll be waiting for you at 2 p.m. We'll figure out the next steps together. From Jeremy Hartwell to Miranda Thornton. Date December 24. You're right. I know you're right. I've been a coward. I'll tell her Christmas morning, and then I'll come to you. I just need to do this right. From Miranda Thornton to Jeremy Hartwell. Date December 25, 10:15 a.m. I'm so glad you're finally telling Clarissa about us. It's time. See you at 2 p.m. I'll be waiting. The iPad slipped from Clarissa's hands onto the bed. The room spun. The walls seemed to close in. I'm so glad you're finally telling Clarissa about us. Us. There was an us. And he'd left on Christmas Day? Left his family? Left the dinner she'd spent days preparing? Left his daughters to go to her? Clarissa looked at the clock on the nightstand. 2:47 p.m. He was with her right now. Whoever Miranda was, whatever they were, he was with her right now, while Clarissa sat in their bedroom, in the house she'd made into a home, holding the evidence of his betrayal in her shaking hands. Downstairs, someone laughed. It sounded like breaking glass. Clarissa stood up slowly, mechanically. She picked up the iPad and took a screenshot of the email thread, then another. Then she opened his text messages and found the thread with Miranda. Dozens of messages, months of conversations, all the proof she'd need. She screenshotted everything. Then she set the iPad down exactly where she'd found it, smoothed the bedspread, and walked to the bathroom. She looked at herself in the mirror, mascara slightly smudged, lipstick faded, eyes hollow. She washed her face, reapplied her makeup, fixed her hair. When she walked back downstairs 5 minutes later, she looked perfect again. But inside, Clarissa Hartwell was already burning down. Clarissa sat on the edge of the bed, the iPad still warm in her lap, and let the world tilt sideways. How long? That was the first question. Not why, not who. How long? How long had he been lying to her face? How long had he kissed her goodnight and then texted another woman? How long had she been the fool who made elaborate dinners and kept a perfect home while he built a life somewhere else? She thought of all the late nights. Big project at work, babe. Don't wait up. She thought of the business trips that seemed to multiply over the past 6 months. Atlanta, Chicago, Boston. Just a few days, Clary. I'll bring you back something nice. She thought of the way he'd kissed her goodbye. Quick, distracted, already somewhere else in his mind. Does everyone know but me? The thought made her stomach turn. Had Monica noticed? Uncle Marcus? Had they all been sitting at her dining room table, eating her food, pitying her behind their smiles? Who was Miranda Thornton? The name meant nothing to her. She'd never heard Jeremy mention it, but that didn't mean anything anymore. Clearly, there was a whole section of her husband's life that she knew nothing about. Clarissa looked at the bedroom door. She'd locked it before sitting down, some instinct telling her she needed privacy for this moment.
60 seconds, she told herself. You get 60 seconds to fall apart, and then you go back down there and finish this day. The first sob came out like something broken. Her shoulders shook, and she pressed her fist against her mouth to muffle the sound. Tears ran hot down her face, smearing the makeup she'd so carefully applied that morning.
She thought of Tony and Sarah downstairs. She thought of the Christmas she'd planned for months. She thought of 18 years of marriage, of a life built on what she'd thought was solid ground. And she cried. 59, 58, 57. She let herself break, just for a minute. Let herself feel the full weight of the betrayal, the humiliation, the rage. 30, 29, 28. Then, at 0, she stood up. She walked to the bathroom and turned on the faucet. Cold water splashed against her burning face. She looked at herself in the mirror. Red eyes, blotchy cheeks, mascara tracks like war paint. She washed it all away. Reapplied concealer, fresh mascara, new lipstick, red this time, bold and defiant. She brushed her hair, smoothed her dress, and studied her reflection. The woman looking back at her was different now, colder, harder. Good. She unlocked the bedroom door and went back downstairs.
There she is, Monica called out as Clarissa entered the dining room. We were about to send a search party. Sorry, Clarissa said smoothly, moving to the sideboard where she'd laid out dessert. Just needed to freshen up. Who wants pie? I made 3 kinds: apple, pumpkin, and pecan. She moved through the room with mechanical precision, serving dessert, refilling coffee cups, laughing at Uncle Marcus's terrible jokes, but everything felt distant now, like she was watching herself perform from somewhere far away. She posed for pictures with the family, her smile bright and empty. She complimented Monica's dress. She asked about the Patterson twins' school play. She was perfect. But Auntie Grace watched her with those sharp, knowing eyes. When Clarissa went back to the kitchen for more whipped cream, Grace followed. What happened upstairs? Grace's voice was quiet, urgent. Clarissa kept her back turned, focused on the refrigerator. Not now. Clarissa! I said not now. She turned and her face must have shown something because Grace took a small step back. After everyone leaves, please, Auntie, just let me get through this. Grace studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. All right, baby girl, but we're going to talk. I know.
At 3:30, while Clarissa was boxing up leftovers, Tony appeared in the kitchen doorway. She'd sent her friends home 20 minutes ago, said she wasn't feeling well, which was probably true. 16-year-olds had excellent radar for family drama. Mom! Tony's voice was small, uncertain. Can we talk? Clarissa set down the Tupperware and turned to face her daughter. Of course, sweetheart. Tony glanced toward the living room, where voices still drifted in conversation, then moved closer and lowered her voice. Where's Dad really? The question landed like a punch. Clarissa felt her carefully constructed composure waver. I don't know, baby. Mom, don't lie to me. Please. Tony's eyes were filling with tears. Something's wrong. I can feel it. You've been weird all day and Dad just left on Christmas. And everyone's pretending like it's normal, but it's not normal. Clarissa reached out and pulled Tony into a hug, feeling her daughter's shoulders shake. You're right, she whispered into Tony's hair. It's not normal, and I'm not going to lie to you. But I need you to trust me right now. Can you do that? What's happening? I don't know yet, but we're going to be okay. Clarissa pulled back, holding Tony's face in her hands. You and Sarah are my priority. Whatever happens, whatever comes next, you two come first. Do you understand me? You and your sister are what matters. Mom, you're scaring me. I know, baby. I'm sorry. Clarissa wiped the tears from Tony's cheeks with her thumbs. I'm going to handle this. I promise. But I need you to be strong for your sister right now. She's younger. She doesn't understand things the way you do. Can you do that for me? Tony nodded, sniffling. Is Dad coming back? I don't know, Clarissa said honestly, but we're going to be okay either way.
At 3:45 p.m., Clarissa's phone buzzed in her pocket. She was in the living room, pretending to listen to Uncle Marcus's story about his new boat when she felt the vibration. She excused herself and walked to the front hallway, pulling out her phone. Jeremy, so sorry, got held up. Be home by 5. Love you. She stared at the words. Love you. How dare he? Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She wanted to type 100 things. She wanted to scream at him through the phone. She wanted to tell him she knew everything, that his lies were over, that he'd destroyed them. Instead, she took a screenshot. Then she opened her photo gallery and scrolled through all the other screenshots she'd taken. The emails, the text messages, months of evidence. She sent them all to her own email address with the subject line, backup. Then she deleted the sent email from Jeremy's phone. She walked through the kitchen, grabbed her coat from the mudroom, and slipped out to the garage. The cold hit her immediately. She closed the door behind her and leaned against Jeremy's workbench, her breath forming clouds in the December air. She pulled up her contacts and scrolled to a name she'd hoped she'd never need, Diane Castellano. They'd gone to college together. Diane was a divorce attorney now, one of the best in the state. Clarissa pressed call before she could talk herself out of it. Clarissa? Diane's voice was warm, surprised. Merry Christmas! How are... I need a lawyer, Clarissa said. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears, flat, emotionless. For a divorce. Silence on the other end. Then, oh, honey, I'm so sorry. Can you come see me this week? Day after tomorrow? Yes. First thing, I have evidence. Emails, texts, everything. Good. That's good. Document everything, okay? And, Clarissa, Diane's voice softened. Are you safe? Do you need... I'm fine. I just need to know my options. We'll figure this out. I promise. Thank you. I'm sorry to call on Christmas. Don't you dare apologize. That's what friends are for. Clarissa hung up and stood in the cold garage, her breath still forming clouds, her hands still shaking. She'd done it. She'd made it real. The garage door from the house opened, and Auntie Grace stepped out, wrapping her cardigan tighter against the cold. Who did you call? Grace asked, though her tone suggested she already knew. A lawyer. Clarissa looked at her aunt. Merry Christmas to me. Grace crossed the garage and stood beside her, their shoulders touching. Good, she said firmly. That's smart. But listen to me, baby girl. Don't do anything rash. Not yet. What do you mean? Let him come home. Let him walk through that door at 5 o'clock with whatever excuse he's cooked up. Let him explain. Grace turned to face Clarissa, her expression serious. Then you destroy him. But you do it with facts, not emotions. You do it when you're in control, not when you're hurt and angry. I am hurt and angry. I know, but you're also smart. Smarter than him, clearly. Grace squeezed her shoulder. He doesn't know that you know. That's your advantage. Use it. Clarissa thought about this, her mind starting to clear through the fog of pain. So I just pretend? Act normal when he gets home? You watch. You listen. You gather information. Grace's smile was sharp, almost predatory. Men like Jeremy, they get sloppy when they think they're safe. Let him feel safe. Let him think he's gotten away with it. And then? Then you take everything. The house, the savings, custody of those girls, you take it all, and you leave him with nothing but his precious Miranda and the life he tried to build on lies. Clarissa felt something cold and solid settle in her chest. Not rage anymore, something calmer, more dangerous. Purpose.
He really doesn't know I know, she said slowly, testing the idea. That's right. So when he comes home, you be the perfect wife, one more time. And you watch him squirm. Clarissa looked at her aunt, this woman who'd survived her own husband's betrayal, who'd come out the other side stronger and richer and happier. Okay, she said. Okay, I can do that." They stood together in the freezing garage, two women who learned the hard way that love wasn't always enough, that trust could be weaponized, that sometimes the only way forward was through the fire. "Come on," Grace said finally. "It's cold out here, and you still have guests. Let's go finish this day with dignity." Clarissa nodded and followed her aunt back inside, where the sounds of her family's laughter still echoed through the halls of the home she'd built, the home she'd fight to keep.
At 5:15 p.m., the front door opened. Clarissa was in the living room, helping Monica gather her children's coats, when she heard Jeremy's voice boom through the house. "Sorry, everyone. Traffic was absolutely insane." She turned slowly. Jeremy stood in the entryway, cheeks flushed from the cold, carrying 3 shopping bags from upscale stores. His smile was wide, apologetic, completely at ease, like he hadn't just spent the afternoon with another woman, like he hadn't abandoned his family on Christmas, like nothing was wrong at all. "There he is," Uncle Marcus said, though his tone was noticeably cooler than this morning. "Quite the work emergency." I know, I'm the worst." Jeremy set down the bags and spread his hands in mock surrender. "But I brought peace offerings." He reached into one bag and pulled out a bottle of expensive bourbon for Marcus, a silk scarf for Monica, gifts he'd clearly just bought, price tags hastily removed, evidence of his alibi, purchased and presented like proof of innocence. Clarissa watched him work the room, all charm and apology, and felt something dark and cold expand in her chest. He moved toward her, arms outstretched for a hug. "Clary, babe, I'm so sorry." She let him embrace her, his cologne, still too strong, filling her nostrils. His lips brushed her temple, and she felt her skin crawl. "You're amazing," he murmured into her hair, just loud enough for others to hear. "Dinner smelled incredible when I left. I'm sorry I missed it."
Clarissa pulled back and smiled. It felt like ice cracking across her face. "We saved you a plate." If he noticed the coldness in her voice, he didn't show it. He was already moving past her, calling out to Sarah, who'd appeared at the top of the stairs. "Princess! Come give your old man a hug!" Sarah hesitated. She was old enough to know something was off, but she came down anyway. Jeremy swept her into his arms, spinning her around like she was 6 instead of 14. "Dad, you missed Christmas dinner," Sarah said quietly when he set her down. "I know, sweetie. I'm so sorry. Work stuff. You know how it is. But I got you something special to make up for it." Tony appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. "Hey, Dad." "Tony!" "There's my beautiful girl." Jeremy approached her, but Tony didn't move, didn't uncross her arms. Jeremy's smile faltered for just a second, then recovered. "Got you something too. Latest model noise-canceling headphones. I know you've been wanting them." "Thanks," Tony said flatly. The remaining guests were filing out now. The Pattersons, Clarissa's cousins, a few neighbors, everyone thanking Clarissa for a lovely dinner, pointedly not mentioning Jeremy's absence. Or maybe pointedly mentioning it with their silence. Monica hugged Clarissa at the door. "You okay?" she whispered. "Perfect," Clarissa said. "Thanks for coming." When the door finally closed on the last guest, only Auntie Grace remained. She sat in the living room armchair like a queen on her throne, watching Jeremy with those sharp, knowing eyes. "Jeremy," Grace said coolly, "how kind of you to join us." "Auntie Grace, I apologize. Emergency at work." "On Christmas?" Grace's eyebrow arched. "Must have been quite the emergency."
On Christmas, Grace's eyebrow arched, must have been quite the emergency. Jeremy laughed uncomfortably and turned to Clarissa. "Is there any of that turkey left? I'm starving." "In the kitchen," Clarissa said. "Help me clean up." The kitchen was a disaster, dirty plates stacked on every surface, leftover food in various stages of being put away. Clarissa moved to the sink and started running water, her back to Jeremy. She heard him open the refrigerator, pull out the plate she'd saved for him. The microwave hummed to life. "How was your errand?" she asked, her voice carefully neutral. "Fine. Good." He was behind her now, close enough that she could feel his presence. "Just last-minute shopping. You know how it is." "Last-minute shopping."
She turned off the water and turned to face him. On Christmas Day, when every store is closed? Not every store. Some of those fancy boutiques stay open. Premium shoppers, you know. I wanted to get the girls something special. How thoughtful. The microwave beeped. Jeremy pulled out his plate and sat at the kitchen table, digging into the turkey with apparent enthusiasm. This looks amazing, Clary. You really outdid yourself. She watched him eat, watched him lie with every bite, every smile, every casual word. Jeremy, she said quietly, who's Miranda? His fork stopped halfway to his mouth. The kitchen suddenly felt very small, very airless. What? Miranda. Clarissa leaned against the counter, her arms crossed. Who is she? I don't... His eyes darted to the side, looking for an escape. Why are you asking about... For Miranda? Were the last-minute gifts for Miranda? The fork clattered onto the plate. Jeremy stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. Clary, I can explain... Don't. Her voice cut through the air like a blade. Don't explain. Not here, not with our daughters in the next room. It's not what you think. Then what is it, Jeremy? She took a step toward him, and he actually backed up. Enlighten me. Because, from where I'm standing, it looks like you spent Christmas Day with another woman while your family waited for you, while I lied to 23 people about where you were, while your daughters wondered why their father couldn't be bothered to show up for dinner.
Clary, please. His face had gone pale, his hands shaking. It's not like that. Miranda, she's just... He reached for a glass on the counter, his movements jerky with panic. It slipped from his fingers and shattered against the tile floor. The sound seemed to echo forever. They both stood frozen, staring at the broken glass scattered between them. Girls? Auntie Grace's voice came from the doorway. Neither of them had heard her approach. She stood there, still regal, still composed. Why don't you take your friends upstairs? Your father needs to help your mother finish cleaning up. Clarissa hadn't even realized Tony and Sarah were there, hovering in the hallway, eyes wide with fear. How much had they heard? But Mom, Sarah started. Upstairs. Now. Grace's tone left no room for argument. The girls disappeared, their footsteps rapid on the stairs. A door closed above them. Grace didn't leave. She simply moved into the kitchen, closed the door behind her, and leaned against it. A silent sentinel. Jeremy looked from Grace to Clarissa and back again. He seemed to realize, finally, that there was no escape. He sat down heavily, his head in his hands. Okay. Clarissa remained standing, her back against the counter, arms still crossed. She felt like if she moved, if she relaxed her posture even slightly, she might shatter like that glass on the floor. Miranda is... Jeremy took a shaky breath. She's an old friend, from college. We reconnected about 6 months ago at a conference. An old friend? Clarissa repeated. Her voice was so cold it surprised even her. She reached out because she was going through a rough time. Her marriage was falling apart, and she didn't have anyone else to talk to. So you became her therapist? No, She looked up at her, and there were tears in his eyes. Real or manufactured, she couldn't tell anymore. I was trying to help, that's all. She needed someone to talk to.
On Christmas Day? Clarissa pushed off the counter, moving closer. She needed someone to talk to on Christmas Day? So badly that you had to leave your family, miss the dinner I spent days preparing, lie to everyone who asked where you were? She was alone, Clary. Her kids are with her ex. Her family's in another state. She was going to spend Christmas by herself. So you spent it with her instead. The words tasted like poison. Instead of being with your wife, your daughters, your family. It's not an affair, Jeremy said desperately, standing up to face her. Clary, I swear to God, it's not an affair. We're friends. That's all. Friends. Friends, Clarissa repeated slowly. She felt Auntie Grace's eyes on her, felt the weight of the decision she was about to make. Grace had told her to let him talk, to let him dig his own grave. So she would. Show me your phone, she said. Jeremy's face went gray. What? Your phone. If you're just friends, if this is all innocent,
Show me your phone. Show me the text messages between you and Miranda. Clary, show me, Jeremy. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone. His hands were shaking so badly he nearly dropped it. There's nothing to see. It's just, we text sometimes. About her situation. About her divorce. Then let me see. He unlocked the phone. She watched him enter the code, memorized it, and handed it to her. Clarissa scrolled through his text with Miranda. Dozens of them. Hundreds, maybe. She scanned them quickly, her stomach turning with each message. Thinking about you. Wish I could see you tonight. You make everything better. Can't wait for Christmas. It'll be perfect. She looked up at Jeremy. He was crying now, openly, his face crumpling. Just friends, she said quietly. It's not physical, he whispered. I never touched her. I swear. Oh, well then. Clarissa's laugh was sharp, brittle. As long as you never touched her. As long as you just spent 6 months emotionally investing in another woman, telling her things you don't tell me, making plans with her, choosing her over your family, as long as you never physically touched her, I guess that makes it okay. Clary, please, get out of my kitchen. What? She threw his phone at him. He caught it against his chest, fumbling. Get out of my kitchen. Out of my sight. I can't. Her voice cracked, the first sign of the emotion roiling beneath her icy exterior. I can't look at you right now. Clarissa, get out. Jeremy fled. She heard his footsteps on the stairs, heard a door slam on the second floor. Clarissa stood in the wreckage of her kitchen, broken glass still scattered across the floor, dirty dishes piled everywhere, the remnants of a perfect Christmas dinner gone cold. Auntie Grace moved beside her, crunching glass under her sensible shoes. She didn't say anything. She just put her arm around Clarissa.
And finally, Clarissa let herself break. Clarissa was still crying in Auntie Grace's arms when the doorbell rang. 6:30 p.m. The sound cut through the house like a knife. They both froze. Through her tears, Clarissa heard movement upstairs. Jeremy's footsteps, hesitant. The creak of a floorboard as Tony or Sarah shifted position wherever they were hiding. The doorbell rang again. Longer this time. Insistent. I'll get it, Grace said, but Clarissa pulled away, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. No, I've got it. Her voice was raw but steady. She'd already cried in front of her family tonight. What was one more humiliation? She walked through the living room, past the remnants of Christmas. Crumpled wrapping paper, half-empty coffee cups, the tree lights still twinkling obliviously. When she opened the front door, cold air rushed in. And there stood a woman. Mid-30s, Clarissa registered automatically. Blonde hair in loose waves. Expensive coat, designer boots. Beautiful in that effortless way that made Clarissa suddenly aware of her own puffy eyes and rumpled dress. The woman's face was streaked with tears, her mascara running in dark rivers. I'm so sorry to intrude, the woman said, her voice shaking. I'm looking for Jeremy. He left his phone in my car. The world narrowed to a pinpoint. Everything. The cold, the sounds of the house, her own heartbeat, faded into background noise. Clarissa stared at this woman, this stranger, who wasn't a stranger at all, standing on her doorstep on Christmas night. You must be Miranda, Clarissa heard herself say. Her voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. Miranda's eyes widened, red-rimmed and shocked. He told you about me? Before Clarissa could answer, she heard Jeremy's footsteps thundering down the stairs. Miranda, what are you doing here? His voice was panicked, high-pitched in a way Clarissa had never heard before. He pushed past Clarissa,
actually pushed past her and stepped between them like he was protecting Miranda from something, or protecting Clarissa, or maybe just protecting himself. Miranda looked at him with wounded eyes. You left without saying goodbye. After everything we talked about today, after what you promised, you just left. I had to come home, Jeremy said, his voice low, urgent. We talked about this. I told you I needed time. Time? Miranda's voice rose. Jeremy, you said you were ready. You said Christmas was the day. You said you were going to tell her and then we could finally be together. Stop. Clarissa's voice cut through their argument like ice. Both of them turned to look at her as if they'd forgotten she was there. Just stop.
She stepped back from the doorway, gesturing inside with a sweep of her arm. Her movements felt mechanical, controlled, like she was operating her body from somewhere far away. Please, she said, her voice eerily calm. Come in. Join us. Clarissa, Jeremy started. I insist. Her smile was terrible, empty. It's Christmas, after all. The more, the merrier. Miranda hesitated on the threshold, looking between Jeremy and Clarissa with confusion and growing horror. But something in Clarissa's expression, or maybe just the surreal politeness of it all, made her step inside. Clarissa closed the door behind her. Auntie Grace stood at the bottom of the stairs now, arms crossed, her face carved from stone. Above, Clarissa could see shadows on the landing, Tony and Sarah, watching everything unfold. Girls, Grace said, without taking her eyes off of Miranda. Go to your rooms. But, Tony started. Now.
The shadows retreated. Doors closed upstairs, but Clarissa knew they were listening. Of course they were listening. Living room, Clarissa said, gesturing like the hostess she'd been all day, like this was just another guest, another part of the celebration. Please, sit. Can I get you something to drink? Coffee? Wine? We have plenty of wine. Mrs. Hartwell, Miranda's voice cracked. I didn't know he hadn't told you. He said, sit. Clarissa's voice was still calm, but there was steel underneath now. Both of you, sit down. Jeremy and Miranda moved to the couch like children being sent to the principal's office. They sat on opposite ends, as far apart as possible. Jeremy's hands were shaking. Miranda was crying silently, tears dripping off her chin. Clarissa took the armchair across from them, the same chair she'd sat in hundreds of times for family game nights, for movie marathons, for Christmas morning present opening. She crossed her legs, folded her hands in her lap, and looked at Miranda with polite interest. So, Miranda. Her voice was conversational, light. How long have you known my husband? Miranda glanced at Jeremy, who was staring at his hands. When he didn't answer, she whispered, We reconnected 6 months ago, at a conference in Atlanta.
Reconnected? Clarissa smiled. That's a nice word. So you knew each other before? College. We dated for a few months our senior year, before he met you. How romantic. Old flames reuniting. Clarissa's smile never wavered. And you've been in touch for 6 months? All this time? Yes. I see. Clarissa turned to Jeremy. And you never thought to mention this? That you were rekindling a relationship with an ex-girlfriend? It wasn't like that, Jeremy said hoarsely. At first it was just, we ran into each other, we caught up, that's all. Miranda made a wounded sound. That's all? Jeremy, you told me you'd made a mistake. You told me that if you'd known I was still single, you never would have married. Miranda, please. You said you loved me. Miranda turned to face him fully now, her composure shattering. You said you were going to tell her today. You said we could finally be together, that you were ready to leave. Stop, Jeremy begged. Please stop talking. But Miranda wasn't stopping. She turned back to Clarissa, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Hartwell. I thought he made it sound like you two were already separated, like it was just a matter of paperwork, like you barely even spoke anymore. We speak, Clarissa said softly, or we did, until today.
I thought he was free, Miranda continued, the words tumbling out now in a desperate rush. I thought, God, I'm such an idiot. I believed everything he told me, every word. And now, she broke off, pressing her hands to her face. When she looked up again, her expression was anguished.
I'm pregnant, Jeremy. The room went silent. Not the silence of a pausing conversation, the silence of the world ending. The silence of everything you thought you knew crumbling into dust. Clarissa's hands tightened on the armrest of her chair, her knuckles going white. She felt Grace move closer behind her, a solid presence at her back. What? Jeremy's voice was barely audible. I'm pregnant, Miranda said again, looking at him with desperate eyes. I came to tell you in person. I know the timing is terrible, but I couldn't. I had to see you. I had to tell you face to face. Jeremy stood up so fast he nearly fell over. What? Miranda, we didn't. The night of the conference, Miranda said, standing too. The first night. Your hotel room. You were drunk. You said you'd been unhappy for so long. You said you loved me. You said... I was drunk. Jeremy's voice rose to a shout. We didn't... I thought we just talked. I thought... Oh God, I don't even remember. You don't remember? Miranda's voice broke. You don't remember telling me you loved me? You don't remember... She stopped, pressing her hands to her stomach. You don't remember any of it? Clarissa stood up slowly. The room spun slightly, and she gripped the chair for balance. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but absolute. Get out. They both looked at her. Get out. Both of you. Now. Clarice... Jeremy moved toward her. Don't. She held up one hand and he stopped like he'd hit a wall. Don't come near me. Don't touch me. Don't speak to me. Mrs. Hartwell, I'm so sorry, Miranda said, fresh tears spilling down her face. I thought he was leaving you. He said he was ready. He said you two barely even slept in the same room anymore. Clarice's laugh was sharp, broken. We slept in the same bed last night, Miranda. This morning, I woke up next to him. I made him coffee. I kissed him goodbye when he said he was coming right back. Remember that? This morning, when you kissed me and told me you'd be quick? Jeremy's face had gone gray. Clary, please. You were with her, all afternoon. While I was here, lying to everyone about where you were with her. Clarissa's voice was rising now, the careful control finally cracking. On Christmas, while your daughters asked where you were, while I covered for you, while I smiled and pretended everything was fine, you were with her. It's not... I didn't mean... And now she's pregnant. Clarissa looked at Miranda, then back at Jeremy. She's carrying your child and you don't even remember it. You don't remember sleeping with her. You don't remember telling her you love her. You don't remember any of it. I need to take a paternity test, Jeremy said desperately. We'll figure this out. We? Clarissa's voice cracked. There is no we, Jeremy. Not anymore. Please, Clary, please, let me explain. I said get out! Her scream echoed through the house. Upstairs, she heard Sarah start to cry, Tony's voice trying to comfort her sister. Miranda fled first, sobbing, her designer boots clicking on the hardwood as she ran for the door. She fumbled with the handle, finally got it open, and disappeared into the night. Jeremy stood frozen, staring at Clarissa like he was seeing a stranger. Out, Clarissa said again, quieter now, but no less final. Get out of my house. This is my house too. Actually, Auntie Grace's voice came from behind Clarissa, cold and precise. This house is in Clarissa's name, purchased with her inheritance from her grandmother. You might want to check the deed. Jeremy's face went from gray to white. Clary, please, don't do this. Not on Christmas. Think about the girls. I am thinking about the girls. I'm thinking about how their father abandoned them today. I'm thinking about how he lied to them, to me, to everyone.
I'm thinking about how another woman just showed up at our door claiming to be pregnant with his child. She moved closer to him, and he actually backed up a step. I'm thinking, she continued, her voice deadly quiet, that my daughters deserve better than a father who can't remember sleeping with his mistress, who can't remember telling her he loves her, who can't even be bothered to show up for Christmas dinner. I made a mistake. You made 1,000 mistakes for 6 months. Every text, every phone call, every time you chose her over us, those were all choices, Jeremy. Not mistakes, choices. She pointed to the door. Get out. Go to a hotel. Go to Miranda. Go wherever you want, but you're not staying here tonight. Clary, get out of my house. Jeremy grabbed his coat from the closet, his hands shaking so badly he could barely button it. He looked at her one more time, pleading, desperate, but Clarissa turned her back. She heard the door open, close, the sound of his car starting in the driveway. Then, silence. Clarissa stood in her living room, surrounded by the ruins of Christmas, and felt the full weight of everything crash down on her at once. Behind her, Auntie Grace spoke softly. That's one problem handled. Now we deal with the rest. The rest? Clarissa turned to look at her aunt. What rest? It's over. My marriage is over. Grace's smile was sharp, knowing. Oh, baby girl, this story is just getting started.
If she had known what was going to unfold that night, she would never have stepped into Jeremy's home. The door had barely closed behind Miranda when Tony came thundering down the stairs. "Mom, what's happening?" Her voice was high, panicked. Who was that woman? Why was she saying... She stopped when she saw Clarissa's face. Sarah appeared behind her sister, tears streaming down her cheeks, her whole body shaking. "Mommy!" Clarissa opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. How did you explain this? How did you tell your daughters that their father, their hero, the man who'd taught them to ride bikes and helped with homework and tucked them in at night, how did you tell them he was a stranger? Jeremy moved toward the stairs, his arms outstretched. "Girls, it's okay. Everything's going to be..." "Don't!" Clarissa's voice cut through the air like a whip. She held up her hand, and Jeremy froze mid-step. "Don't touch them. Don't go near them." "Clary, they're my daughters." "Are they?" The words came out before she could stop them, cold and cruel. She saw Jeremy flinch, saw the shock register on Tony's face. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean..." But the damage was done. The implication hung in the air like poison. But she had no idea she wasn't making the right approach to the whole situation. How do you feel when the father of your children has another affair outside?
Auntie Grace stepped forward, positioning herself between Jeremy and the girls. When she spoke, her voice had that quality of absolute authority that made even adults want to obey. "Jeremy, you need to leave. Tonight." "This is my house," Jeremy started, but Grace cut him off. "This is Clarissa's house." Grace's tone was matter-of-fact, like she was reading from a legal document. "Purchased with her inheritance from her grandmother 5 years ago. The deed is in her name alone. Or did you forget that detail while you were busy building your other life?" Jeremy's face went slack. Clarissa saw the moment it hit him, that he had nothing, that everything he'd taken for granted, everything he'd assumed was his, had never actually belonged to him at all. "The mortgage payments," he tried, "are made from a joint account that Clarissa funded. Shall I go on, or would you like to call your lawyer and have them explain your legal standing in this household?" Clarissa turned to her daughters. Tony was staring at her father like she'd never seen him before. Sarah was still crying, quieter now, her arms wrapped around herself. "Girls," Clarissa said, her voice gentler, "go to your rooms, please. We'll talk about this later, I promise. But right now..." "Is Dad leaving?" Tony asked. She sounded older somehow, her voice stripped of its teenage petulance. She just sounded tired. "Yes," Clarissa said before Jeremy could answer. "He is." "Good," Tony said, and the word landed like a bomb. She took Sarah's hand and led her sister back upstairs. Sarah looked back once, her face a mask of confusion and hurt, before disappearing around the corner. The sound of Sarah's bedroom door closing echoed through the house. Now it was just the three of them, Clarissa, Jeremy, and Grace. The Christmas tree lights blinked on and off, casting dancing shadows across the walls. Silent Night played softly from the speaker system. A sick joke. Jeremy collapsed onto the couch, his head in his hands. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice muffled. "I'm so sorry. It was one mistake. I was drunk. I don't even remember." "Stop lying." Clarissa remained standing, her arms crossed. "I read the emails, Jeremy, the texts. Now, that was just talking. We never... Was it just one time?" Clarissa's voice was surgical, precise. She was done with emotions. She needed facts. "How many times did you see her?" "I don't know. A few? How many?"
We had lunch sometimes. Maybe 8 or 9 times. 8 or 9, Clarissa repeated. "And phone calls?" "We talked. I don't know how often." "Every day?" Jeremy's silence was answer enough. "So, for 6 months," Clarissa said slowly, "you talked to her every day? You had lunch with her 8 or 9 times? Probably more. You're lying about the number. You made plans to spend Christmas with her? You told her you loved her. You slept with her." Her voice cracked on the last part. "You emotionally cheated on me every single day for 6 months. And then you physically cheated on me, and you expect me to believe it was just one mistake? I never meant to hurt you." "But you did!" The scream tore out of her throat. "You did hurt me. You chose her over us on Christmas, while your daughters were asking where you were, while I was lying to everyone to protect you, you were with her." "I was trying to end it," Jeremy said desperately. "That's why I went today. I was trying to tell her it was over." "Liar," Grace said softly from her position by the stairs. "If you were ending it, you wouldn't have told her you were finally ready. You wouldn't have promised her Christmas." Jeremy turned to look at Grace, and Clarissa saw fear flash across his face. Grace had that effect on people when she was angry, like she could see straight through to all your worst secrets. "Clarissa," Grace said, still watching Jeremy, "there's something you should know." Clarissa felt her stomach drop. What now? What else could there possibly be? "I saw Jeremy 3 weeks ago, December 2nd, at Marcello's downtown, with that woman, Miranda. They were in a corner booth, very cozy, very intimate." "You knew?" Clarissa turned to her aunt, feeling betrayed all over again. "You knew and you didn't tell me?" "I wasn't sure," Grace said, and for the first time tonight, she looked uncomfortable. "I couldn't see clearly from where I was standing. I hoped, God help me, I hoped I was wrong. I didn't want to hurt you with suspicions." "So you waited until I found out myself?"
"I'm sorry, child. I should have told you immediately. I was trying to protect you, and instead..." Grace shook her head. "I failed you." Jeremy had gone very still. "You saw us at Marcello's?" "I saw enough," Grace said coldly. "The way you touched her hand. The way she looked at you. That wasn't the look of someone going through a divorce who needed a friend. That was the look of a woman in love." "Oh, God," Jeremy whispered. "December 2nd was your father's birthday," Clarissa said quietly. "I asked you to come to dinner with me, to visit his grave. You said you had to work late. Clarie, you missed my father's birthday dinner to have a date with your mistress." The words hung in the air. Jeremy opened his mouth, closed it. There was nothing he could say. No defense, no excuse, no lie that would make this better. "I'll take a paternity test," he said finally, grasping at straws. "When the baby comes, I'll prove it's not mine." "And if it is?" Clarissa asked. "Then," Jeremy swallowed hard,
then I'll deal with it. I'll support the child. I'll do what's right. But I want us, Clarie. I want our family. I know I messed up. I know I destroyed your trust. But I love you. I love our girls. I don't want to lose you. What would she do now, knowing the enemy was her own husband? Clarissa laughed, and the sound was broken, terrible. There is no us anymore, Jeremy. You destroyed that. You can't unmake those choices. You can't unsleep with her. You can't untell her you love her. You can't unspend 6 months lying to my face every single day. People make mistakes. This wasn't a mistake. Clarissa's voice rose again. A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. A mistake is missing a dentist appointment. This was calculated. Every text, every phone call, every lunch date, every lie. You made a choice. Over and over again. You chose her. You chose to betray us. Jeremy stood up, his hands outstretched in supplication. What do you want me to do? Tell me what to do and I'll do it. Therapy? Counseling? I'll quit my job. We can move, start over somewhere. I want you to leave, Clarissa said. Her voice was calm now, final. You have until tomorrow morning to get your things and leave. Clarie, please, let's talk about this. Let's not make any rash decisions. Rash? You think this is rash? You made this decision 6 months ago when you reconnected with her. You made it every time you texted her. You made it today when you chose to spend Christmas with her instead of us. I'm just accepting the reality you already created. Where am I supposed to go? I don't care. And the terrible thing was, she meant it. Go to a hotel. Go to Miranda. Go to hell for all I care, but you're not staying here. What about the girls? What about them? Clarissa's voice was sharp. You should have thought about them before you started sleeping with your ex-girlfriend. You should have thought about them before you abandoned them on Christmas. You should have thought about them before you destroyed this family. I'm their father.
Then act like it, Clarissa snapped. A father doesn't choose his mistress over his children. A father doesn't lie and sneak around and betray their mother. You want to be their father? Prove it. Take responsibility for what you've done. Don't make excuses. Don't blame the alcohol. Don't tell me it was just one mistake. Jeremy looked at Grace, desperate. Auntie Grace, please, talk to her. Help me. Help you? Grace's laugh was cold. Boy, you had help. You had a good woman, a beautiful family, a comfortable life, and you threw it away for what? An ego boost? A midlife crisis? Whatever Miranda made you feel? She moved closer to him, and despite being a full foot shorter, she suddenly seemed to tower over him. I watched my niece spend 2 days preparing a perfect Christmas for you. I watched her worry when you didn't come down this morning. I watched her lie to protect you, smile to cover for you, pretend everything was fine while her heart was breaking. And you couldn't even be bothered to show up. I'm sorry, Jeremy whispered. Sorry isn't enough. Sorry doesn't unbreak what you broke. Now get out, before I forget I'm a Christian woman and do something I'll regret. Jeremy looked at Clarissa one more time. She saw hope in his eyes, saw him waiting for her to soften, to forgive, to tell him it would be okay. She said nothing. He grabbed his jacket from the coat closet and walked to the door. He paused with his hand on the handle, looked back. I do love you, Clary. I know you don't believe me, but I do. Love isn't a word, Jeremy, Clarissa said quietly. It's a choice. And you chose someone else. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Through the window, Clarissa watched him get into his car, watched the headlights come on, watched him sit there for a long moment, head bowed against the steering wheel. Then he drove away, the taillights disappearing into the darkness. Clarissa stood in the wreckage of her living room, wrapping paper scattered across the floor, cold coffee cups on every surface, the tree still twinkling cheerfully like nothing had happened. Her legs gave out. She sank to the floor, and this time when she cried, there was no 60-second limit. There was no performance. There was just grief, raw and endless. Auntie Grace sat down beside her, pulling Clarissa into her arms like she was a child again. I've got you, baby girl. I've got you. Upstairs, a door opened quietly. Soft footsteps on the landing. Clarissa looked up through her tears to see Tony and Sarah sitting at the top of the stairs, holding each other. Her daughters. Her beautiful, heartbroken daughters. They'd lost their perfect Christmas, their perfect family, their perfect life. And there was nothing Clarissa could do to fix it. If Jeremy had known what's in stock for him, he wouldn't have ever cheated on his wife with his ex. At 11 p.m., the house was finally quiet. Tony and Sarah had cried themselves to sleep hours ago. Clarissa had sat with them, stroking their hair, answering their questions as honestly as she could. "I don't know" had become her most common phrase. "I don't know if Dad's coming back. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if we'll be okay." But she'd promised them they would figure it out, together. Now Clarissa sat alone in the dark living room, the only light coming from the Christmas tree. She'd turned off all the other lights, unable to bear the cheerfulness of them. The tree blinked red and green and gold, oblivious to the destruction around it. She heard soft footsteps on the stairs. Auntie Grace appeared carrying 2 mugs, steam rising in the darkness. "Chamomile," Grace said, handing one to Clarissa, "with honey, your grandmother's recipe for heartbreak." Clarissa took the mug but didn't drink. "I don't think tea can fix this." "No," Grace agreed, settling into the armchair across from her. "But it helps." She sipped her own tea, studying Clarissa over the rim. "There's more to this story, isn't there?" Clarissa looked up. "What do you mean?" "Something's been bothering me all night. About that woman. About her showing up here like that." Grace set down her mug. She swiped a few times, then held it out to Clarissa. "Look at this." Clarissa took the phone. The screen showed a Facebook profile. Miranda Thornton. The profile picture was recent. Miranda smiling at the camera, looking happy and settled, and wearing a wedding ring. What? Clarissa swiped to the next photo. Miranda with a man, mid-40s, handsome in that distinguished way that came with money and power. His arm around her shoulders, both of them smiling at a charity gala. The next photo, Miranda at a park, pushing a child on a swing. A boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old. "She's not divorced," Clarissa said slowly. Her brain felt sluggish, struggling to process. "She's married. She has a kid. Not just married. Happily married from the looks of it. That's her husband, Richard, and that's their son, Christopher." Clarissa looked up. "I don't understand. Why would she lie? Why would she tell Jeremy she was going through a divorce?" Grace leaned forward, her expression grave. "I hired a private investigator. Amateur move, I know, but I had a hunch after I saw them at Marcello's. Called in a favor from an old friend who does background checks." She pulled out a folder from beside her chair. When had she gotten that? And opened it on the coffee table. Documents, printed photos, what looked like financial records.
Miranda's husband is Richard Thornton, Grace said, watching Clarissa's face. The name hit like a physical blow. The Richard Thornton? Jeremy's boss? The CEO of... The same. Grace tapped one of the documents. Jeremy's worked under him for 12 years. And in those 12 years, Jeremy was passed over for VP 3 times. Each time, the promotion went to someone else. Clarissa's hands were shaking. What does Miranda have to do with Jeremy's career? Everything. Grace pulled out another document, a timeline, meticulously detailed. Last year, Richard had an affair, got sloppy about it. Miranda found out. There was a big blow-up, almost filed for divorce, according to my source. But they worked it out. Or so it seemed. She showed Clarissa a series of photos, Richard with another woman, dated 8 months ago. Then photos of Richard and Miranda at therapy, at marriage counseling. Miranda wanted revenge. But she's smart. She didn't want to destroy her marriage. She has a good life, a child, financial security. She just wanted to hurt her husband the way he hurt her. So she targeted Jeremy. Clarissa said, the pieces clicking into place with horrible clarity. Because he works for Richard? More than that.
She specifically chose Jeremy because he'd been passed over for promotion. She knew he'd be vulnerable, frustrated, feeling undervalued. Grace's voice was clinical, like she was presenting a case study. She researched him, found out you two had been married for 18 years, found out about his college girlfriend, herself, and used that as an in. Clarissa felt sick. The conference in Atlanta, that wasn't chance. She arranged it, made sure she'd be there, made sure they'd run into each other. Grace showed more documents, email confirmations, registration records. She played him like a fiddle, Clarissa, made him feel seen, appreciated, understood. Everything a man with a bruised ego needs to hear. And the pregnancy? Clarissa's voice was barely a whisper.
Grace's expression turned even grimmer. She pulled out a medical record. Miranda had her tubes tied 2 years ago. Elective surgery. She can't get pregnant. The room tilted. Clarissa gripped the arm of the couch, her tea forgotten on the table. So this whole thing, she started, was a setup. Grace finished. To destroy Jeremy, to humiliate him, to ruin his career and his marriage, and through him to hurt Richard, make him watch one of his employees implode, maybe even expose the affair, create a scandal that would reflect badly on Richard's leadership. But why? Clarissa's voice cracked. Why us? We didn't do anything to her. We don't even know her. Collateral damage in a marriage war. Grace's voice was gentle but firm. You and those girls upstairs, you were never supposed to matter. You were just tools, pawns in her revenge scheme. Clarissa stood up abruptly, pacing the living room. Her mind was racing, trying to reconcile everything she thought she knew with this new horrible reality. Jeremy didn't know, she said. He had no idea he was being manipulated. No, Grace agreed. He was a fool, but he wasn't malicious. He was just easy prey. She lied about everything, the divorce, the pregnancy, all of it.
Clarissa stopped pacing. Jeremy needs to know. Right now. Tonight. Grace nodded. I thought you'd say that. Jeremy had checked into a Holiday Inn 3 miles away. Clarissa had his location from Find My iPhone. She'd never taken him off the family plan. She called him. He answered on the first ring. Clary? His voice was hoarse, like he'd been crying. Is everything okay? Are the girls? We need to talk. Now. Where are you? He gave her the address. She was already grabbing her keys. 20 minutes later, she was knocking on his hotel room door. When Jeremy opened it, he looked like hell. Red eyes, rumpled clothes, hair standing on end. The room behind him was a mess. The bed unmade, his suitcase exploding clothes across the floor. What's wrong? He asked immediately. Did something happen? Clarissa pushed past him into the room, pulled out her phone, and started showing him the photos Grace had found. Look at these. Look at them carefully. Jeremy took the phone, confusion crossing his face, then shock, then horror. She's married. Very married, with a kid. But she said, she told me she was divorced. She lied. Clarissa pulled up more photos. Her husband is Richard Thornton, your boss. Jeremy's face went white. He sat down heavily on the bed, the phone slipping from his hands. Oh my God. She targeted you specifically, Jeremy. This was all planned. The conference, the reconnection, everything. She was using you to get revenge on her husband for his affair. The pregnancy? Fake. She had her tubes tied 2 years ago. Clarissa showed him the medical record Grace had obtained. Legally questionable, probably, but Grace had always been resourceful. She can't get pregnant. It was all a lie. Jeremy's hands were shaking. He looked up at Clarissa with something like desperation. She played me. She used me. Yes, Clarissa said flatly. She did. I thought, his voice broke. God, Clary, I thought she cared about me. I thought someone finally saw me, you know. At work, I'm invisible. Richard passes me over every time. And then Miranda showed up and she made me feel important? Special? Like you mattered? Yes, he whispered. I know how pathetic that sounds. I know I should have, but I felt invisible for so long. And then he broke off,
pressing his hands to his face. "I'm such an idiot." "Yes," Clarissa said. "You are. What do I do?" He looked up at her, and she saw genuine fear in his eyes. "What do I do now?" "We don't do anything," Clarissa said firmly. "You're going to go to Richard tomorrow morning. You're going to tell him everything. The affair, the setup, all of it." Jeremy's face went even whiter, if that was possible. "I'll lose my job. He'll fire me on the spot." "You've already lost your family," Clarissa said. "What's a job compared to that?" "Clary?" "No." She held up her hand. "You made this mess. You clean it up. You tell Richard what his wife did. You take responsibility for your part in it. And then you deal with the consequences." Jeremy stood up, moved toward her. "Does this change anything between us? If I do this, if I make it right, does it change anything?" Clarissa looked at him, really looked at him, this man she'd loved for 18 years, this man who'd fathered her children, built a life with her, promised to love her forever. This stranger who'd spent 6 months lying to her face. "You still lied," she said quietly. "You still broke my trust. Whether she manipulated you or not, whether the pregnancy was fake or not, you still chose to meet her. You still chose to text her every day. You still chose to spend Christmas with her instead of your daughters." "I know." "Do you?" Her voice rose. "Do you understand what you did to them? Tony asked me tonight if you ever loved us. Sarah asked if she did something wrong. Your daughters, your beautiful, innocent daughters, think they're the reason you left." Jeremy's face crumpled. He sank back onto the bed, his shoulders shaking with sobs. "I'm so sorry. God, I'm so sorry." Clarissa watched him cry and felt nothing. No sympathy, no urge to comfort him, just a vast, empty exhaustion. "I need time. I need space. I need to figure out if I can ever look at you the same way again, if I can ever trust you again, if there's anything left of us worth saving." "How much time?" Jeremy asked through his tears. "I don't know. Months. Maybe years. Maybe forever." She moved toward the door. "But first, you make this right. You tell Richard. You face the consequences. You prove to me, and to your daughters, that you can be the man we thought you were. And if I do, if I fix this..."
Clarissa paused with her hand on the doorknob. "Then maybe we'll talk." But Jeremy, she looked back at him. "I'm not promising anything. You broke something that might not be fixable. You need to understand that." "I do," he whispered. "I understand." Clarissa opened the door, then stopped. "One more thing. Those emails between you and Miranda, screenshot everything before she deletes them. You're going to need proof." She walked out, leaving him alone in that sad hotel room with the weight of his choices. As she drove home through the empty Christmas night, Clarissa thought about Grace's words. Collateral damage in a marriage war. That's what they'd been. Her, Tony, Sarah, just casualties in someone else's vendetta. But they were still here, still standing, still fighting. And somehow, they would survive this. They had to. Something is about to happen that will change the whole situation. Jeremy never see this coming. He would have took a run for a short while. Clarissa woke to pale winter light streaming through her bedroom window. For one beautiful, disorienting moment, she forgot. The bed beside her was empty, but maybe Jeremy was downstairs making coffee. Maybe yesterday had been a nightmare. Maybe. Then she saw the note on his pillow. Her hand trembled as she picked it up, recognizing Jeremy's handwriting. "I'm going to fix this. I promise. J." She checked her phone. 6:47 a.m. No missed calls, no texts. She threw on her robe and went downstairs, her heart already pounding with an anxiety she couldn't name. Tony and Sarah were in the kitchen, sitting at the table in their pajamas. They weren't talking, weren't eating. Just sitting there, staring at nothing, their faces pale and drawn. They looked up when she entered, and the fear in their eyes broke her heart all over again. "Mom," Tony said quietly, "where's Dad?" Clarissa sat down at the table with them, reaching out to take their hands. Sarah's was cold, small. Tony's gripped hers tight, desperate.
Your father and I are having some problems, she said, keeping her voice steady. Adult problems. Marriage problems. Is he coming back? Tony asked, 16 years old and trying so hard to be strong, but her voice cracked on the last word. I don't know, sweetheart. The honesty hurt, but she owed them that. I honestly don't know. Sarah had been quiet, but now she spoke, her voice tiny. Is it my fault? Did I do something wrong? No. Clarissa pulled both girls into her arms, holding them tight. Nothing is your fault. Nothing. Adults make mistakes, big ones, terrible ones, but that's on us, not on you, never on you. What did Dad do? Tony asked into Clarissa's shoulder. Something he can't take back, Clarissa said softly. But he's trying to make it right, I think. I hope. They sat like that for a long time, the three of them holding each other in the morning light, surrounded by the debris of yesterday's Christmas, cold coffee cups, crumpled napkins, a forgotten plate of cookies on the counter. Then Clarissa's phone rang. Unknown number. She pulled away from the girls, her stomach clenching. I need to take this. She walked into the living room, pressed answer. Hello? Mrs. Hartwell, please don't hang up. Miranda's voice. Clarissa's hand tightened. I know everything, Clarissa said coldly. The lies, your husband, the setup, the fake pregnancy, all of it. I know you do. Miranda sounded different. Scared. Urgent. That's what I'm calling about. Jeremy is in danger. Clarissa felt ice flood her veins. What? My husband found out about the plan, about Jeremy, about all of it. Miranda's words came fast, tripping over each other. He's furious, Mrs. Hartwell. Richard isn't a good man when he gets angry. Good, Clarissa said, though her heart was racing. You both deserve each other. You don't understand, Miranda's voice dropped to a whisper. Richard has connections, powerful ones. And when people cross him, Mrs. Hartwell, I'm scared. For Jeremy, for myself, for everyone. Are you threatening me? I'm warning you, Miranda's voice rose, desperate. Jeremy went to confront him this morning, at the house. He wanted to tell Richard everything, to come clean, but Richard already knew. I don't know how, but he knew. And now Jeremy is there, and he's not answering his phone. And Clarissa hung up. Her hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped the phone. She called Jeremy, straight to voicemail. She called again, voicemail. She pulled up his office number, called, a receptionist answered, chipper despite the early hour. Thornton Industries, how may I? Jeremy Hartwell, Clarissa interrupted. Is he there? Has he come in? Let me check. A pause. No, ma'am. Mr. Hartwell hasn't checked in today. Would you like to leave a message? No, thank you. Clarissa hung up. She called Richard Thornton's direct line. It rang 4 times, then, You've reached Richard Thornton. I'm unavailable. Leave a message. Unavailable. But she had no idea Jeremy was up to something iconic. This will be the game changer. Clarissa stood in her living room, Jeremy's note still crumpled in her hand, and felt panic rise like a tide. Clarissa, Auntie Grace appeared in the doorway, already dressed despite the early hour. She must have heard the phone calls. What's happening? Jeremy went to Richard Thornton's house to tell him everything, but Miranda just called. She says Richard already knows. She says Jeremy's in danger. Grace's expression went grave. What are you going to do? Clarissa looked at her aunt, then back toward the kitchen where her daughter sat. I don't know. Part of me wants to let him handle this mess himself. He made it. Let him fix it. And the other part? Clarissa closed her eyes, saw Jeremy teaching Tony to ride a bike, patient and encouraging, saw him at Sarah's school play, recording every second on his phone, saw him on their wedding day, looking at her like she was the only person in the world. Before the lies, before Miranda, before everything fell apart. The other part remembers the man I married, she said quietly, before all of this. Grace nodded slowly. Then you know what you have to do. Clarissa grabbed her keys from the counter, pulled on her coat. Mom! Tony appeared in the doorway, Sarah behind her. Where are you going? Clarissa looked at her daughters, her beautiful, frightened daughters, and made a choice. To get your father. The drive to Richard Thornton's estate took 20 minutes. Clarissa had the address from Grace's investigation folder. her hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel the entire way. The estate was in the hills, gated and massive. Old money, the kind that built walls and hired security and never had to answer to anyone. Jeremy's car was in the circular driveway, parked at an angle like he'd been in a hurry. Clarissa pulled up to the gate, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it. Before she could press the call button, she heard something. Shouting, muffled by distance and walls but unmistakable. A man's voice, raised in anger. Then a crash. The sound of something, glass, furniture, breaking. Then silence. Terrible, absolute silence. Clarissa's hand hovered over the intercom button. Her mind raced through scenarios, each worse than the last. I could walk away, she thought. I could get back in the car, drive home to my daughters, let him face this alone. He deserves it. He made these choices. He destroyed us. But then she saw Tony's face, Sarah's face. Is Dad coming back? I don't know. She pressed the button. Static crackled. Then a voice. Smooth, masculine, controlled. Who is it? Clarissa took a breath. Clarissa Hartwell. I'm here for my husband. A long pause. So long she almost pressed the button again. Then, come in, Mrs. Hartwell. We've been expecting you. The gates swung open with a mechanical hum, smooth and inevitable. Clarissa got back in her car and drove through, watching the gates close behind her in the rearview mirror. The driveway curved through manicured gardens, bare trees reaching toward the gray December sky. The house loomed ahead. A mansion, really. Stone and glass and power. She parked next to Jeremy's car and got out. The front door was 20 feet of carved oak, intimidating and ancient. It opened before she reached it. A man stood in the doorway, 50s, distinguished, wearing an expensive suit despite the early hour. She recognized him from Grace's photos. Richard Thornton. Mrs. Hartwell, he said, his voice pleasant, urbane. What a pleasure. Please, come in. Your husband and I were just having a conversation about loyalty. He stepped aside, gesturing into the house. Clarissa couldn't see Jeremy, couldn't hear him. But she stepped forward anyway, crossing the threshold into Richard Thornton's home. The door closed behind her with a sound like a tomb ceiling. Jeremy? She called out, her voice echoing in the marble foyer. Richard smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Right this way, Mrs. Hartwell. I think it's time we all had a talk. About consequences. About actions and reactions. About what happens when people try to destroy what's mine. He started walking deeper into the house. Clarissa followed, her heart in her throat, not knowing if she was walking into a rescue or a trap. Not knowing if both she and Jeremy would make it out of this house alive.
What would she do now that she's in the middle of the whole escapade? Tomorrow's episode, Clarissa digs out the whole truth on her visit. If you want to hear what happens next, subscribe and turn on notifications.